Well, today we're going to be talking about why you resist self-love. Why do you resist self-love? And that's a subject that I think will help other people have more freedom in their lives if they really figure out where they're resisting self-love, why and where and how, then they can open themselves up to receiving more self-love, more love
Yeah,
from the universe, from everyone, really. That sounds exciting to me.
it does sound exciting. And I love the way you phrase that because I feel like one of the things that's super important for all of us on this journey of self-love is kind of recognizing that it's a very individualized process.
Hmm.
Your resistances might be very different than mine. They might be showing up in very different places. You
Mm.
know, we could list, and I think it might be fun to sort of take a survey of all the possible ways one might resist self-love. But it's also really, helpful to go into that inquiry knowing that your way might be very different than mine. You
Hmm.
know, these
Well,
things,
my way is the right way, I want you to know.
absolutely, man. Your way,
There's only one way to resist self-love, and I have the right way.
that's hilarious. Yeah, that sounds like our famous egos talking there. The ego would love to assert that. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it does.
it does. Yeah,
I think it says that this is what we need to do. We need to resist self-love, and that it's protective because there's a certain vulnerability that comes with letting love in, especially love from yourself, love from the universe.
yeah,
So, yeah, it is going to assert itself and
yeah.
say, we have to do it. It doesn't matter why other people do it, but
Right.
this is why we have to do it. And if we let somebody in, then yeah.
It's
So,
so fascinating to me because, I'm glad we're opening with the subject of the ego, actually,
hmm.
because it's such a slippery thing in the sense that, I always find it kind of almost hilarious that on the one hand, the ego is really what's creating the illusion of separation, you know, that we think we're separate from others. I think that comes from the ego because, in at the deepest level, we are all connected. We are all one. But the ego is so freaked out. So it feels so threatened and insecure that, it very much wants to focus outward to try to get its needs met. It's
Yeah.
almost like a desperate clinging, And yet it's so funny because the ego is the one that creates the illusion of separation to begin with. In other words, it's doing two things, I think. It's creating the illusion, and then it's freaking out by the illusion that it created.
Mm. Oh, that's funny. I think it likes to give itself a job to do. So it's like, let's create the problem and the solution.
Yeah,
But the solution doesn't solve the problem because it's the problem.
absolutely did. Now that's so well said. I love
And
that.
it can't solve itself.
It doesn't solve the problem because the solution that the ego wants to provide us is to focus our attention outward.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not self-love, you know? It's really funny.
Yeah. And welcome to our guests. And yes, you may just listen along. I know Kat probably will want to just listen along as well. And we're going to be diving into a conversation of why we resist self-love. And if you have questions or you have something that you'd love to get out of this conversation, you'd love to hear more clearly, And even just share what brought you here. You're welcome to share it in the chat, or you're welcome to pop on and share on on the screen, or you can just have your voice be heard. I was messaging somebody earlier, and they were asking about this topic. So they said, I would like to love myself more and not be so hard on myself. They went on to say I'm harsh and on myself and beat myself down when something doesn't go as planned because I mess up the plan or just mess up in general. So I think in our conversation we'll hit something like that, talking about how we can maybe treat ourselves more kindly and not be so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
I think
I,
I think treating ourselves poorly is a way we might resist self-love.
yeah, I think that's true. Even in that very act itself is a form of resisting self-love.
Mhm.
But, I was wondering, do you think it would be helpful in acknowledging our tendency to not be kind with ourselves?
Mhm.
Do you think it would be helpful to sort of lay down the background that all human beings face, in this human predicament that makes it so understandable why we resist self-love? In other words, so that we can have compassion and grace with ourselves when we bump up and when we, are noticing that we are not being very self-loving. If we know that, oh gosh, all humans struggle with this,
Mm.
and there are a lot of really good reasons why we resist self-love, that would help us, I think, to be more gentle when we identify that we're doing it,
Mm.
But I see Katrina has her hand up, so maybe we should address that first.
Hi. Yeah, going back to what you were saying earlier, it it looks to me like the ego creates the illusion of separation in order to justify its own existence.
Mm.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
Because there's no I, really, without the illusion. So the whole point of the illusion is to justify itself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really profound, and I think it's so true, and it gets to the root of why we resist, you know? Because to some degree, the act of really committing to self-love is also the act of dropping that illusion,
Mhm.
which the ego doesn't want us to do.
Mm. Yeah. Did you have anything that you'd love to get out of this session, Kat?
I'm very, very hot with weather and can't sleep. So the last few calls, I've gone into a wonderful, blissful sleep listening to you. You've soothed me to sleep. It seems like self-love to me.
Absolutely.
So we would like one person to address how they beat themselves up, and then one person to help them fall asleep. So we'll try to slow down a little bit, and maybe we'll talk like George Pransky or Steve Chandler.
Oh,
I
please talk like yourselves.
oh, okay, okay. Well, I'll be me and you be you. And then LN also wrote in the chat as well. She's liking the few words that she's heard at the beginning, or he, I don't know if it's a she or he. And self-love seems paradoxical. And I was hoping to hear different perspectives on it. And then you also put in quotations the word self. I'm kind of interested by that. And I'm wondering if you're willing to share a little bit more in the chat by what you mean by it being paradoxical and why you put self in quotes, because I'd love to speak to it. And while we're waiting for that, if anyone else would love to share what they'd like out of this session today.
I guess I was thinking a little bit about the topic of just sort of acceptance of what is. I think so often my brain is thinking, well, if I do this self-improvement thing, or if I do this self-improvement thing, instead of just loving myself as I am. And it's a process. I still want to do these self-improvement things, but just sort of loving myself as I am so that I'm not resisting the moment and resisting what is right now. And that's kind of self-love, and that I can love myself even if I haven't been doing everything that I wish I had been. And I just want to say, Katrina, I totally get you. I've been going to some of my most beloved events that I go to. I fall fast asleep because I finally feel safe and secure and like things are good. So I can relate, and I always worry that the speaker is going to be offended, but you know what? They're doing me such a service to just be able to relax to that point that it's really truly a blessing. So I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I just want to say that.
I think that's really beautiful, and I take no offense to that whatsoever, because I feel like, to some degree, self-love is giving ourselves permission to not take our mind and our thoughts so seriously. The thoughts can be so intrusive, and they can really clamp down on us in so many ways. And whatever you can do to relax and loosen that is a form of self-love, I think. And so there's no shame in falling to sleep, because this isn't an intellectual thing anyways. We're trying to get past the intellect here. But there was a beautiful comment that LN made. What is being loved exactly? And I absolutely love that question, because it's super important, and it speaks to the multi-layered nature of self-love. I mean, we could give you the Michael Singer answer. He would say, the self is the seat of consciousness, or the witness. And so if that's what we're talking about, that is a little bit different, because it's a little more advanced. I would say that yes, loving that, the witness, is probably the deepest form of self-love. But we don't have to go that far in this inquiry. We can take baby steps. It's okay to just love, the illusion of self, which is our vessel, I think we need to be really gentle with ourselves, because getting deep into the witness consciousness can put pressure on ourselves,
Can I address, I see, because the question is actually, what is being loved? There's not even the word self in there. And I kind of like that, because when you are being loved, there is no self that's receiving it. Like, being loved is just receiving of love.
Yeah. I mean, you might even go as far as to say, I tend to believe that what we are is a drop of pure love. I kind of am of the belief that the witness, that's what the witness is, a drop of pure, abundant love. And so if you can relax into your witness, you're automatically, it's almost definitional that is love.
Wow. And Dee Hearn, I saw you unmute yourself. Did you want to share what you love out of this session today?
Hi, I'm Diana. You've answered my question because I wanted to, since I came in a little bit late, it was the context of, well, how are we defining self-love? So what you've shared is helpful. And I was going to agree with, I believe, Katrina, if we really are talking about, you know, the illusion piece, there is no I, we're a we, if we think that way. But when we talk about love, it's like, well, what is love? Is self-love acceptance, self-acceptance? Is it patience, or is it more than that? So you've Scott just kind of talked about our witness self. So that gives me better context.
And there are no single answers to any of this. We each get to decide our own answers, I think, in this process, because it's very individualized. But I will just throw one other thing out that I think is kind of cool, is that for me, what really clicked in my self-love discovery process is when I just reduced it to the simplest in terms of trying to define what is self-love. I really like the idea that all self-love is acknowledging that you live in here. You see, because it's the ego that's always seducing us to believe that we're living in the outer world. And, the human predicament reinforces that constantly. Everything in life and all the conditioning we receive directs us to engage as if we are living out here. But the reality is that we are actually living in here. And so when we can actually be willing to see that, it becomes absolutely obvious that we would want to tend to self, because self is where we live. And so self-love is simply dropping the illusion that we live out there. That's what I would call self-love.
And I find that difficult on a day-to-day basis because we do live so much in ego world. So the hardship is in reminding ourselves of that self-love. We get so caught up in our day-to-day. I know I've been caught up in my day-to-day, and recently retired. I can now spend more time on this, but it's an effort, right? It doesn't come naturally as living in the ego world.
Yeah.
So now for me, it still seems like I'm climbing Mount Everest, even though I shouldn't look at it that way. It's far easier than that. But it does seem like a constant effort to live in that self-love.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I think it's really beautiful if we can, right out of the gate, give ourselves permission to forget as much as we want, to take the pressure off, because that's just the human condition. We're going to forget and forget over and over again. We're going to take our thoughts seriously over and over and over again. But one of the things that's really neat about the self-love process is we can start to catch it a little sooner, So the cycles can be shortened of forgetting, and we can remember a little quicker.
Could I speak to it too? Would that be okay? Was it Diane?
It's Diana.
Diana, okay. Could I speak to it as well?
Of course.
Yeah. I'm hearing that you are feeling like it's an effort, like it's a slog, and that it feels effortful is telling you something. It's a feedback. And only the ego is filled with effort.
Exactly. It's living in that ego always.
Yeah. So actually that's really helpful. That's showing you that, oh, I'm a little off here in where I'm coming from. And that's okay. Like I would rather there be effort than no effort and not care about self-love at all. And I think that the more that you refine where you're coming from, you can come from a place of effortlessness in your loving of yourself, because really what you're doing is nature is love. Nature is always giving and receiving, and there's no effort in it. It just accepts, and there is a part of ourselves that unconditionally loves us without us trying anything. We don't have to earn it. It's an unearned merit, as Adi Ashanti would call it. That's really cool. That's effortless. And when you tune into that part of yourself, you're going to really see the nature of loving yourself more.
Yeah, and I think, Scott, what you said earlier about the intellectual aspect of it, I've done and read everything from Course in Miracles to, I told, it's all out there, right? Raised as Catholic. So spirituality has been a journey. But the most recent has really been this introduction to A Course in Miracles. And so that's really introduced me to new concepts that I hadn't been previously exposed to. But this notion of love being such a career-driven person, that ego is really there. And so I just feel like it takes effort. That you're absolutely spot on. You picked up on it perfectly. It takes effort to tune into that self-love, because it doesn't come as naturally. And it's just all of this training, all of these years living this way in this ego world. So trying to really just tune into that, it seems more of an effort now.
Are you open to it not being effortful?
Totally. That's why I'm here, right? And so listening to this is okay. Let me take that one in, because I will always take things in intellectually and then process them and then allow the feelings to just kind of come along with it. But doing it in reverse with open heart first, that takes a little bit of work. Because it's very cerebral.
Yeah. And so there can be an invitation of a new way of sensing into this space, because you just have habitually done it in a certain way. And Scott and I actually just released a little coaching podcast about this, where we talk about the shortcuts and how that habit is like a shortcut that we just automatically go to. Like that way of using our minds. Oh, I have to effort my way to self-love because I effort my way to freaking everything. That's the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
And so you can do that, and that's great, and that will get you to a certain place. And if you are willing to take what we call the scenic route, you'll find someplace new.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. You might even say that self-love is just letting go. That's one way of saying it that really underscores why it's not an effortful thing.
Yeah,
It's
and I just took a
already,
deep breath. The moment I heard you say that, it's like, oh, let me breathe through this one. Yeah, it
yeah,
can be effortless.
yeah. There's nothing. This is why this is such a wonderful conversation, because we are jumping over paradoxes all over the place. And one of the biggest ones is that, in fact, there's nothing we need to do to practice self-love. It's already in us, completely innately. We're just talking about it almost for kicks because, well, we're humans. So we do that. But actually, there's nothing that we need to do. What we need to do is not do.
Yeah, there's a
That makes any
wonderful
sense.
meditation that I found. It's called Do Nothing, and it's one of the best ones. It's like do nothing. Doesn't walk you through a guided meditation. It just lets you be. It's one of my favorites. It's 10 minutes long. So I'll incorporate some of what we're discussing here into that particular meditation in quotes because it's really just do nothing.
Yeah,
And it's just a matter of incorporating love into
right.
this do nothing.
And another cool part of it is I think it's just trusting that we totally know how to love ourselves extremely well. And I can tell you why I know that. Because every single one of us, if we had a little newborn dropped on our lap, we would immediately know how to give that baby love. It's just, we don't need a manual for that, right? It's totally baked into us. Well, that's all we have to do with ourselves.
Good one.
Kat, you've had your hand up. Would you love to speak?
Yeah, I'm waking up. I'm not going to sleep. Um, it occurred to me when Diana was talking, this ego thing. What really is it? It's just some ideas that I believe are me. They're thoughts. I made them up. Or something made them up, or they're just thoughts that I believe are true that mean that they're me. And most of them I can't even see because I think they're me. But the space that the thoughts move through, I mean, that's what I call love. That's the space of infinite potential of everything. And as soon as I know that I'm not the thoughts, then I'm love. And that doesn't take an effort, that as such, it takes an understanding. It's something I saw, not by doing. I mean, I used to try and meditate. I tried to meditate. And the thing was, I started to see that I am the meditative space. I don't need to try. That underneath all that thinking, that's what I am. The meditative space is the same as love.
Hmm.
That's who I am. That's what we are. And then this thinking comes through and creates these incredible experiences, some of which we think we don't want, but they just. I'm starting to lose my words now. It's late over here. Um, but yeah, it's a game that we play. We create these movies in our head, and yet we are love. We are the meditative space, and it's full of infinite potential. It holds everything, including the ability to believe that we're not, or that it's hard work. And sometimes I believe that.
Yeah, me too. And sometimes I don't. Is there anything else there, Kat?
No, I think it's time for me to go back to dozy land. I will.
Rest well.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, that was beautiful. Hmm. Do you have anything to say about that, Scott?
I immensely enjoyed it, and I feel like it really, in some ways, covered this entire topic in such an expansive and complete way that I'm a little stunned because I feel like it describes the condition and where we are so perfectly. I don't even know how to add to that. You know, it's the meditative space.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And I loved the recognition that sometimes we forget that. And sometimes we forget that for years at a time. I was doing this meditation that was based off of Adyashanti's work. It was healing the core wound of unworthiness. It was one of his tapes. And I remember listening to that tape and then driving to a place in Denver where I was going to take a test. And his suggestion was to explore the nature of redemptive self-love. And he described it as this descending grace that was kind of like this opposite energy of this ascension that we are usually thinking of as the spiritual path. And he was talking about how important it is for us in our Western culture to have this descending grace and to allow it in, because we have this mythology of unworthiness, this mythology that at our core we are bad and wrong, and that we should judge ourselves, and that we should criticize ourselves. And that is the way, that punitive way of treating ourselves is the only way to make ourselves better. And that we need saving too. So I was in the car wrestling with this, so resistant. For hours at a time, I didn't play any music. It wasn't until I was driving home where it started to flow, where that grip that I had on the defensiveness of letting something like this in started to relax a little bit. And I started to say, oh, that's what he means by redemptive self-love. That it's this gift that we all receive all of the time. We just think we don't. We just turn away from it, or think we're not worthy of it, or don't receive it. When we unwrap that gift, it's a homecoming. It really is. Because when we were kids, we were naturally loving to ourselves. We were so curious about the universe and ourselves. In fact, I was reading last night in a Steve Chandler book where he was discussing about how there's no difference between curiosity and love. To be curious is to be in love with something. And I loved that. It means not knowing. It means not already having preconceived ideas about ourselves and others. That, I think, is something that we can cultivate within ourselves. And maybe it might take work, and maybe it won't. But I think it's cool to start to look in that direction, to see what's there, to be curious, to be open, to dive into the unknown, dip into the well of being self-love.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I feel like you've given us an entry point because curiosity allows us to not really have to wrestle with our egos. It's kind of like gives us a way to slide right by that ego, without it blocking us. We could find a little passageway where our ego doesn't get so threatened. We're just being curious, just open and curious.
Yeah, there's a lightness to that I really like. We're all curious. We were born that way. Humanity is curious. What if I go to this island? What if I jump on this ship and travel around the world? Like we sometimes do it in a very dangerous and unsettling ways, but it's just like this natural expression of wonder. Wonder that lights us up. And when we find that, then yeah, all of the seriousness melts away. And I think taking ourselves seriously is not very self-loving.
Well, there's some pretty cool things in the chat, like that
Yeah,
Rumi
let's
quote.
visit it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, I only just now noticed the quote from Rumi. We are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop.
That's very cool. I like that.
Oh, you muted yourself.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
Well, it's a different perspective. We usually think of ourselves as a little piece of love, but that's saying we are all of love in one piece. I think Thich Nhat Hanh said something like that, like the whole beauty of the universe can be found in a single flower, that kind of concept. Anyways, it's a fresh perspective to the, everyone thinks, oh, I'm a little drop of love, but to think of yourself as the opposite, like the whole of love all in one little drop.
Right. I mean, it goes back to this paradox thing. I think we keep revisiting it because it's seems so important as we delve into this topic, because that is fundamentally what makes it problematic when we talk about self-love. I don't think we really want to reduce it, but it feels like we're saying, oh, self-love is a subset of love. And of course, that's not true. But we don't have the language to, dissect these finer points in a way that doesn't lead to confusion. Sometimes I've thought that it would make sense to stop referring to self-love and just keep it love. It's just love. And the self throws a lot of people off of the inquiry because they, think that perhaps it's indulgent or something or selfish to practice self-love. And it's so hard to talk about it. It's just so hard to talk about it. That's why I love your curiosity angle, Rich, because in some ways it bypasses all of that.
LN has a question. When you say we live in here, what does that mean? Some say inside and outside are the same.
Well, do you want me to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I feel like you were the
Yeah.
one that
Yeah.
used the phrase. So what is it that you meant?
Well, it's kind of one way of talking about it is just to look at, the setup that we humans are in our physical form. We have these five sensory organs, and they take in stimuli, which gets processed by our mind to produce some kind of interpretation of reality. And so I guess what I was meaning there, literally, I suppose I was meaning the interpretation of reality that our mind creates for us is in here. There's a so-called reality out there, and then there's an interpretation of reality that's going on in here, which is, I think we earlier talked about this idea that we're really just watching a movie inside our head. So the movie is the interpretation. The movie that creates the experience of life for humans is internal, is being played internally. And it sometimes is a very helpful framework to look at it that way, because when we see that we all are sort of just watching our own movies, I think it helps us to have a lot of compassion for each other instead of taking personally what other people are doing. Because this is where the ego comes in. The ego very much would love to assert that my movie is the right movie and everybody else's movie is the wrong one, you know. Um, and so when we look at it from this framework, it really can help to soften that ego stance because it's so clear that couldn't be true. That's ridiculous. I don't have the movie that's playing in my mind is being produced by these five sensory organs, bringing in stimuli, and my five sensory organs are not really that great. They actually, dogs have better eyesight. I mean, smell. Dogs have better sense of smell. I'm sorry. Birds have keener eyesight, and it goes on and on and on, right? So we know that what our interpretation is couldn't possibly be reality. It's only a subjective interpretation that's very diluted. And if we know that, it, I think, can help us quite a bit in our interactions with other humans. Because now we can grant grace to everyone because we recognize, oh my God, all of us are working from this very limited place of observation. And I guess that's what I don't know. I hope that helps. That's how I'm trying to explain outer versus inner. Did that answer the question? I'll look in here
Yeah,
and see.
sort of.
Well, I like that comment. We create reality.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
kind of that inside out
right. Exactly.
creation of reality. Because it seems like everything is external, but really we're in here. And that's kind of the funny thing. Like, and maybe what you're pointing to is that there's no really place that the seat of consciousness like isn't really a seat, right? Like it's not sitting back, oh, right there in the back of my head, or it's on my shoulder, on my left shoulder. No, that's not really how life works, and that is actually one of the explorations that can be valuable is to see like who am I? Am I the thoughts in my head? Am I the energy of life? Am I the feelings in my body? Where am I? Where is all of this? Where there's not really a location. You can't say it's in here. What happens, and then your question is what happens outside of our stories? That's an interesting question. I'm having
Well, when by
curious.
stories, are we talking about like our narratives? I'm assuming that's what's being referenced.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does happen outside of our stories? I mean, that's a very slippery question right there.
I might be
Because
able to speak to it. Do
go
you want
for
to
it.
go
No,
first,
no, go
Scott?
for it.
Okay. So I think that's the gift that we can give ourselves, is to see what's outside of my story, because we're so used to being in our story. And that's one of the most powerful things that I like to do. I call it being honest with how I'm feeling, with my emotions. And it is a meditation, but what I try to do is I try to set the story aside and go into the direct experience of what it feels like. Because outside of our stories, we have feelings, we have a life energy that's flowing through us. There is an entire universe outside of our stories. And if we're in the middle of our stories, there's none of that. We narrow and limit our vision. And feelings, yeah, they are outside of the story. They are created through the story, but you can sense them. In one way, they are one expression. So, yes, they're two sides of the same coin. And you can sense them without the story feeding feeding them further, is what I'm trying to say. So they're an expression of the story that you can experience, and that gives you information. It tells you whether that story is how that story feels. That's all it's telling you. And so you can use that information to drop and let go of the story, not be in it anymore. Yeah. Oh yeah, you'll pick up a story. Kat says other stories are always available. You can pick up the next story. And you know what? That's what I'd like to speak to, is that's not really a problem. Like, it's just this infinite train that has infinite tracks and it just chugs along. But you don't have to be on the train. I just love this quote. I've been chewing on it lately. And it's a quote from Byron Katie. And it goes like this. She says, "There is something better than heaven. It is the eternal, meaningless, infinitely creative mind. It can't stop for time or space or even joy. It is so brilliant, it will shake what's left of you to the depths of all-consuming wonder." I just love the idea that there's something better than heaven, and it's the thing that we struggle and wrestle with. What if that was just this beautiful, graceful thing like a cat. Like it like plays and pounces and runs, and you don't, it's like a kitten. It can be really cute, you know? You don't have to take it seriously. But I think we can make our mind into a tiger. And it seems really scary and dangerous. But if we truly see it for what it is, it's a playful kitten. I think that's the most loving thing you could do to yourself, is to truly see your mind in that way.
What I like about that too is that it essentially allows us to, um, kind of accept that we are going to be creating stories and narratives, but that we can just freely create new ones and abandon old ones at any moment on a whim if we want to. That's a form of self-love. Instead of locking down on a story, a kitten would never do that. A kitten would jump into the next story and completely forget about whatever story it was dealing with moments before. Because that's play. That actually, it's interesting. In some sense, well, that's what play is not, getting attached to one story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's it. I love that. Yeah, being in play means not following the rabbit trail into the depths of frustration and fear.
Right. Logic in some ways is, the enemy of play.
Mm.
That might be too extreme because I'm not anti-logic, but I feel like, sometimes it gets in the way.
Yeah. Mm. It can be a play. I mean, it is playful too. It can
Right.
be.
Exactly. So
It's
that's why
it's
I don't
all
want to
about,
castigate it. Yeah.
yeah, it's all about how you're using it.
Right.
That is the gift of thought, is a gift, and you can use and abuse it. Literally, it's a technology. And the thing is, like, it's a not very well understood technology right now.
Very true.
And when we don't understand a technology, we're more likely to misuse it. And just like any technology has side effects, like the Industrial Revolution created pollution. Well, overthinking creates mental pollution. Fear, judgment, anxiety creates mental pollution. So we need to be, we don't need to be, but it serves us to be better stewards of this technology of thought and to use it in a way that serves us. I'm laughing at Kat's comments. I'm not asleep. Sorry, we haven't lulled you to sleep, but well, I'd love to maybe pause there. Do you have anything more to say, Scott?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Perfect.
I wanted to make sure that we didn't leave anything off on the table. And yes, Rich Life is my real name. My grandfather was Richard Life, and I was born Richard Ostendorf, but I changed my name to my mother's maiden name to Rich Life, and try to create that. I have a declaration every single day that says I create a rich life. And it's not just for me, but it's for others too. So yeah, what I'd love for us to do in our last 4 or so minutes is to maybe share in the chat what you've heard today. If you've had a a takeaway, you're also welcome to come on and share it in person. Make it fairly short, maybe like 30 seconds. But I'd love to hear what you're picking up on and what you're going to run with.
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
You asked me what I wanted to get out of the call, and I had an expectation, and it wasn't met. But what showed up was wonderful. And it would have been wonderful either way.
Cool, I love that. And LN says, I feel grateful for your sharings.
I like the comments about not taking yourself so seriously, and the ego is sort of what makes us feel separate from love, actually. And I think I'm going to focus on that this week.
Beautiful. Love the hearts. Kat's so good with the hearts. I'm just like, we have like heart little celebrations and fireworks over here that I'm always enjoying. Yes. We need more of them. Oh. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time. There's a lot of places where you could be digitally or in person, and you choosing yourself today. That's cool. That's beautiful.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here and collaborating in this journey, because it's so fun, even if it's slippery.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and you can unmute yourselves and say goodbye as well. We've got about a minute left, so unmute yourself, say hi, say bye.
Hi and goodbye. Thank you so much, both of you, Rich and Scott, for doing this for everybody. It's such a lovely service.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
it's nice to meet Katrina for the first time.
It's lovely to be here. Rich and Scott, thank you as always.
Thank you. Yeah. Man, I just feel like I'm full. Feel like I'll just take this feeling and run with it and let it be. So thank you all for sharing this feeling with us today. Cool.
Yes, I second that. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.